welcome back to another episode of Give Me a Buck podcast, partnered with Wisconsin Sports Heroic. I am your host, Jewell Graham. I got my co-star, Zach Wright, with me, and we have another special guest. You may have seen her on the Kane Pittman's podcast or the Technical Foul podcast. Her name is Camille. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, Camille, you're from Milwaukee, right? Born and raised?
Born and raised.
Yeah. So how did you become a Bucks fan?
Oh, man. So growing up in the 90s, I was, of course, a Jordan kid. I feel like most people of my age, you just kind of grew up and you love Michael Jordan. Once he retired, I was like lost at sea. I was like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go, who am I supposed to cheer for, what am I supposed to do? And I just kind of watched basketball. That was a way that me and my uncles always bonded with each other, was just watching sports. So
did you play it?
Drafted. I did not. I am not gifted athletically in that way. I'm tall, so everybody always assumed that I played basketball, but I was always like a manager for the team, or I was always with the coaches. I like to talk about the game more so than like get out there and play, because I was not gifted in that way. Sure. But yeah, once the Bucks drafted Ray Allen and we kind of went on that first early run, I was hooked. I was in middle school and I could not stop watching those Bucks. Yeah. Ray Big Dog, Sam Cassell.
Gotta love Ray. Yeah. So that's where it started for you. All right. So you ready to talk some Bucks basketball?
Let's do it.
So I'm going with the first question off top. Where is Giannis ranked on your MVP list? Camille, what do you think? Where's he at?
So for me, he's top 5 at the moment. He's top 5. For me, I switch back and forth between Embiid and Jokic at my one spot, especially after watching how Jokic did the Bucks earlier this week. Like,
true.
That man is amazing. Embiid's also having a really good season, but Giannis, I would probably slot after those two, possibly after Dame. So my top 5 is LeBron, or not LeBron. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say you got LeBron first.
No, LeBron's not in my top 5. He's flirting with it, but he's not in there at the moment. But it's Jokic and Embiid. I got Dame in there for consideration. I got Luka and I got Giannis.
I love it. Zach, you hear that? Dame Dollar, baby.
Yep.
Dame Dollar.
Love your Dame.
Yeah, I love Dame. So you got Jokic second, you said?
Yeah.
Even though he's 6th in the West.
Yeah. I mean, where are the Trailblazers right now in the West?
Like
I know they're just slightly above 500, I believe.
They're 5.
They're 5 on the dot. Yeah.
They're a game ahead of the Nuggets. They're the 5 seed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jokic has just been putting up some ridiculous numbers right now. Like for me to be MVP, you don't necessarily have to be leading in whatever conference you're in. I'm not going to say you can be a bad team and you have the MVP on it, but like as long as you're in contention, you're in the conversation, like you're eligible in my book.
Okay, so you had Giannis number what?
He fluctuates. I'd probably put him at 3 or 4 right now behind Dame.
I don't know if I like that, Camille. I don't know if I like that. Jokic, he's good, but I think your numbers do, for me, have to translate. Like, you got to get some wins in there. 6 in the East, 6 in the West. I don't know. Zach, how you feel about that? Where's Giannis on your MVP list?
I got Giannis in the 2 spot right now. I still have Embiid at 1. I've had that for the last few weeks as we've been talking about it, and I think he's going to stay at 1 as long as he keeps playing at the level he's playing. I don't think anyone's even close to him right now, especially with the 76ers as the 1 seed. But I got Giannis at 2. I mean, he's won it the last 2 years, and his stats this year, points-wise, is better than his first MVP season. His assists are better than last year. His rebounds right around the same. And he's doing that with even bringing in Drew Holiday, who you would think usually you kind of take a step back with your stats.
Right.
So I think Giannis is still performing at his MVP level. I think Embiid just got him beat right now just because what he's doing at a whole new level and how the team's performing. So I think Giannis is close, but unless if the 76ers kind of fall apart, I think Embiid still got him.
And it's one thing that's interesting too, because the Nuggets are sixth in the West, but the Nuggets are also 21-15. Like sixth in the West is not the same as being sixth in the East. You know what I mean? Like
that's a good point.
They're playing well. They're playing very well.
I give you that. That's a good point. Okay, maybe I like Jokic at the number 2.
Like, and to be fair, like when talking about MVP, like ladder boards and whatnot, or leaderboards, like it's not as, in my opinion, it's not a slight for me to be like, I have Giannis lower, while hearing you have him at 2 is higher than I would put him. Like, I think it's arguable. I think it's completely arguable. I think this whole thing is an arguable exercise at this point. We're only halfway through the season, so things are pretty fluid still.
Yeah, I agree. Zach, I'm gonna have to go with you on this one. Camille, I'm not mad at your pick, only because you just had that good point of 21-15. Like that's still good, going halfway through the season. I'm okay with both of y'all lists. I mean, I would probably I still have Dame number 2. I think you just have to. At first, I had Dame at number 1 because he doesn't have a sidekick. It's no
Right.
CJ. CJ's been gone the last, however many games, the last month and a half. And they're still 5th in the West. They're playing better than the Denver Nuggets, that has like a full team. I think Gary Harris is gone, but let's not make this about Dame. Let's not make this I'm trying not to. But I got Giannis at I give him maybe 2 or 3, and it's between him and Dame. I do have to put Embiid up there because Embiid has been playing. He's been playing really well. The number 1 in the East, and that says a lot for me too. So Camille, let me ask you, who do you believe is the biggest threat to the Bucks? The team.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the biggest threat to the Bucks to make it to the finals?
Now, I have listened to this podcast, so I heard you guys talking about this with a couple of other guests too, and I just nodded my head with a lot of it. I think that the 3 teams in the East that have separated themselves at this point as contenders is Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Philly at this point in the season. Me personally, I think the Bucks match up somewhat well with Brooklyn. Now, that's not to say like I think it's a gimme if we enter into a 7-game series with Brooklyn that we would win. I just think that the Bucks have enough offense to be able to keep up with them to a certain degree. As long as the Bucks can actually get some stops, try to get some stops on those guys.
You think our offense, the Milwaukee Bucks offense, has enough firepower to keep up with those 3 lethal Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden?
As long as the Bucks 3 are healthy, yes. And it's not me saying that I think that the Bucks offense is equally as good as Brooklyn's. I just think that Brooklyn's defense isn't as good as Milwaukee's defense is, although Milwaukee's defense is a work in progress at this point. But You can score on Brooklyn. And with Drew Holiday, with Chris Middleton, and with Giannis, those 3 are able to create in ways that Bucks of past have not been able to. Okay. And that's something I've been looking at. But Philly, I forget which one of you mentioned Philly last week, but Philly is definitely scary because Philly's always been that team where I'm like, I hope they don't get it together. I hope they don't figure it out. Yeah. And the roster makes some sense this year where they have the shooters around Embiid. Ben Simmons has accepted his role as being like just a defensive menace at this point where he's not as worried about getting his buckets offensively. Yep. He has settled in well. Tobias Harris, he plays well with Doc, and he's able to create his shot. He's able to do those things that they need. So their top 3 pose a very interesting dilemma as well. Of all the teams in the East, I would say Philly at this point probably gives me the most pause.
Philly at this point. Okay. So you're not scared of the Miami Heat.
No.
They just went on like a big win streak, and now they're like 5th or 6th in the East right now. So you're not scared of the Miami Heat.
I'm not scared of the Miami Heat. Then again, I wasn't scared of them last year, and that didn't work out well. But no, I don't see the Bucks losing to them in consecutive years. Not this team.
I don't know, man. I agree with you. I think those two teams, Philly and the Nets, are um, big teams that we have to face, and but I still think that the Heat are a very scary team, and I don't want to play. Maybe it's because they handled us so good in the bubble. Maybe I don't know, but I am still scared of that team because they have shooters, and we
Mhm.
do not do well with shooters. So yeah. So Zach, let me switch it to you. What do you think about the new rookie we got? I can't pronounce his name.
Mamdi?
Mamdi. Yeah. You know Bucks Twitter love him, so you might want to watch out what you say.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
about him, Zach.
No, I like it. I think it was long overdue to kind of bring him up. He's been killing it over in the G League. Obviously, he's not going to be able to put those same numbers up once he gets on the NBA team. But I think kind of what we talked about for what's missing with the Bucks right now, and kind of bringing that spark plug to the team. And we talked about it in weeks past, as if Bucks fans are having as much fun this year as they had in years past, and we were just kind of saying it's just because it's kind of the norm of you're expected to win all these games now, and then you kind of just get to the point of going through the motions every night. And I think I know when we had our guy from Scotland on last week, and he loves his Thanasis and what he brings to the team of coming off the bench and bringing that spark plug. And I think he can be a similar guy to that, but a lot more skilled basketball wise. So you're not losing so much. And I think he can give you solid minutes off the bench to give you kind of that spark plug and excitement.
Okay. Camille, what do you think about him?
I'm a fan. I am a fan. I'm not as crazy about him as Buck's Twitter is, in the sense where I don't think that he could come in this season and like really be an impactful player.
Yeah.
The Bucks cap situation has me desperate for them to be able to find some young guys who can contribute. Even if it's not this season, like the Bucks need to have somebody in that pipeline that can be a good basketball player that is young, because
Yeah.
hopefully they figure out how to extend Drew Holiday, and then we have our big three set with Drew, with Chris, and with Giannis. And around them, then you start to need to find some young pieces that can fit. And Mamdi seems to kind of just map on as somebody who could be a great small ball four. In that situation, he just causes ruckus on defense. I have visions of him playing alongside Giannis at center. Eventually,
And all the Bucks Twitter too.
yeah, I'm a little bit more, I think, realistic about it. Just knowing you can't put up G League numbers in the NBA. The competition level is just a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I would love to be able to see what he can do in some small minutes in regular season, because who knows what you might have there. Like, just get him out there a little bit, which in itself is a little bit difficult because the Bucks are kind of treating regular season as like practice, which you can tell, like just from how they're trying different things out, their schemes. So, I mean, if you're trying things out, you might as well try out the young gun and see what he can do as well.
Yeah. Speaking of trying out, I mean, Mamdi, I haven't seen him play. I only seen highlights, and everybody looked good on the highlights. So,
That's
I mean,
true.
I haven't seen when he misses, or like just how he is, how he moves, and things like that. I seen him do like a couple blocks, but again, it's a highlight. That everybody is good on the highlight. So I don't know too much about. I know his numbers look great, and Bucks Twitter like him. I just don't know. I haven't seen him play. I only seen highlights, and it's not fair to me to like say, "Oh yes, we should," give him a shot. Or well, I think we should give him a shot because he's putting up G League numbers. Like those are great numbers, But it, like you were saying, it's the G League, and Camille, like you were saying too. If we're trying new things, put him in. He's averaging, 18 and 11. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
Like you did that with the Nasses. Like, why not? So, but he gets recalled, Now, is Coach Bud even going to play him? Now, this is my next question. Camille, do we fire Coach Bud? Yes or no? Do we
No,
fire Coach Bud? We don't fire.
no, you don't fire Coach Bud in the middle of the season, because then the question is, well, who do you replace him with? And then is that option going to get you any closer to a championship this season? Now,
It has
but
been done. It
it
has
had,
been done. Where you
yeah,
hire somebody, David Blatt, Tyronn Lue walks in,
yeah, but that was
and they win
LeBron.
champion. Well, yeah. So you
I
don't think
mean,
you don't think Giannis can play that LeBron role?
I don't think that Giannis, like, this is going to sound bad, and it's not me discrediting Giannis at all, because I love Giannis. He is a great player, but at that point in his career, LeBron had already won. Like, he already knew what he needed to be able to do in order to get there. Giannis is still searching to get to a finals appearance. So I don't think it's necessarily even fair to be like, Giannis can do the LeBron thing and carry the team there. Like, that's added pressure on his back at this point that he hasn't even he hasn't done it yet. So I can't expect him to do something he's never done before at this
but
point.
we're paying him $200 million. Take us.
Oh no, I hear you.
Man. Take us to
I
the
hear
promised
you.
land.
I won a championship, but I think honestly, the fact that Giannis signed that extension this offseason took a lot of pressure off of this season for me as a Bucks fan. I've been able to really enjoy the season knowing that every game isn't like, oh my God, how will Giannis react? Will we lose him? Will we lose him? Is he good? Like, to know we have him here, even if we don't make the finals this season, but they show like the promise that they can do something. Like, if we can see that this big three here is really something, I'm good with this season. And then we can ready up for next season when we get some more money off of our books.
What's a win for you then? Like, if Coach Bud gets us to the second round, or the conference?
I need to get at least to the conference finals.
At least to the conference finals. So anything short of that, get them out the door. We're done with them.
Yeah, I mean, everything has its own, like, there's exceptions to everything. Like, if someone gets hurt, then of course I'm not going to be like, he didn't make it, get him out of here. But assuming health, I think that this team is capable of playing in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay. So you said no, we're not firing Bud. So Zach, let me ask you this: do you think Coach Bud has learned his lesson by not making adjustments? Because that was the biggest thing, that he's not big on adjustments. He's getting out coached. Zach, do you think Bud has made his adjustments now?
I think it's a good sign that he's starting to make a few slight adjustments, but I don't think he's anywhere near what other coaches are doing in the league and the adjustments they make, and all the adjustments that we've kind of talked about on here. He hasn't made all of those yet. Like you were even saying with bringing in the new guy from the G League, and you even tweeting out, well, let's see if Bud even plays him. Whereas you should be able to kind of trust your coach in those situations of, you're never going to know how he's going to be able to play in the NBA if you don't give him those minutes. And especially, Camille, how you were saying they're kind of treating the regular season as practice anyway. I feel like it should be a lot easier to make these adjustments, try these different rotations, and see all these different things. But yet, Torrey Craig's still not playing on a nightly basis when you have a LeBron or Kawhi and all these guys who he should be guarding. And so I think we're seeing some changes of like defensive approach and some of those smaller things. But I think a big piece in the playoffs was his rotation, and we still haven't really seen much of an adjustment there of different guys he's throwing out there. So I'm still not sold with, I still don't think Bud's the answer. And I don't think from what he's done in the last couple of weeks is enough to change my mind on that. But it is a move in the right direction, but I think there's still a lot more that needs to happen.
Camille, what do you think? Do you think Bud learns his lesson?
Yeah, there's some points that Zach brought up that I definitely do agree with. Some of Bud's roster rotations still baffle me. Like, I don't understand why he keeps pegging Torrey as like a backup four. Like, he's a wing player. Like, he's a wing player. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. But Bud throughout his career has been like notoriously inflexible, which has come to bite, well, pretty much all of his teams with aspirations in the butt at some point. So seeing him tweak a little bit throughout this season has been a great first step, I think, for him. But one thing I will give him credit for is when it comes to rotations is that he's been playing Giannis, Chris, and Drew. I guess you would throw him in there, although he's new, a little bit more than they have gotten play time during the regular season the past 2 years. And my biggest complaint with Bud in the playoffs the past 2 years was, why are you not playing Giannis and Chris and Bled more? Give them minutes.
I heard that during Giannis's one of his things that Giannis said he wants to do is play more. So I'm thinking maybe Giannis came to Bud and was like, "Hey, play me more," you know. So that's a good point. I mean,
it makes sense. Like, if you're resting in the regular season, like, you're keeping their bodies fresh. What are you keeping them fresh for if you're not going to be playing them more in the playoffs? So what I expect when the Bucks get to the playoffs is that their rotation shortens up and we're getting 40 minutes of Giannis and Chris and Drew, which is what we're going to need because this team is top heavy.
Every other superstar is doing it.
Yep.
This guy is 26 years old, or 26 now, but 25 and 24 years old. What are you trying to, like, let him play? Like, he can do it. These are professional athletes. They can play longer than 30 minutes, bud.
There's a happy medium between that Jason Kidd train of thought where I'm going to play them forever, and then Bud's I'm going to hold them back. Like, there's a happy medium.
Playing them too long. We got one not playing them enough. So we need that sweet spot. We need that sweet spot. So with Bud making the adjustments and things like that, Camille, do you think we should trade Lopez?
With questions like that, the answer is always, it depends on for who. I know that Bucks Twitter has a thing against Brook at this point. Like, I see the tweets, and I'm like, man, y'all really on Brook's back. And I like, yes, he is definitely slow, but I think part of that, which I've talked about, part of it I think is because he's being asked to do things outside of just playing a drop scheme, which he's great at that because, one, big body. Don't have to move too far. You just stay back on that, like, by that rim, and you do your job there.
But against Miami and teams smaller, like Brook Lopez,
it's a problem.
Siakam, I don't want to see that.
I think Brook is still useful on this team, but it's matchup dependent. Like, if we go up against Philly, you're gonna want Brook Lopez out there to be that body that Embiid's going up against. You know what I mean? Like, it's situational, and the thing that I would look for Bud to do is to realize when his guy is getting cooked. Like, okay, I'm not putting him in the best position right now. Either I need to be playing that drop scheme with him out there, or I need to get him off the court and get somebody else out there to be switching and rotating a little bit better.
Exactly. Because I remember the Nets game where they were picking on Pat Connaughton and they were picking on Lopez. And I'm like, if you're going to pick on, these are the two people that's getting picked on. How about you go with somebody that can't get picked on or, can move better? So that brings me to my next question. Camille, do you think we should start Bobby Portis? Or do you still think it's situational?
I don't think that we should start Bobby Portis. Bobby is a plus offensive player. He's below average when it comes to that defense. Putting Bobby at the 4 would make Giannis play the 5 more, which I think eventually we're going to want, at least me personally, eventually I want Giannis to move into that 5 spot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's that time yet, which is why another reason why I think that they have Brook, because Brook's like a safety net for Giannis a little bit. But I actually like Dante in the starting lineup because it reminds me a little bit of the Tony Snell conundrum, where it's like that 5th guy out there doesn't need to be a high usage guy. He just needs to fit. And I think that Dante is able to do that a little bit better than someone like Bobby, because Bobby's going to get buckets. Yeah. And when you got a guy who's all about getting buckets, putting him on in that second unit, being the 6th man, where you're free to go out there and do what you do. Yeah. I think that fits him very, very well. Whereas Dante can just lock up, play some defense, shoot when he's open. Please, for the love of God, finish at the basket a little bit better, a little bit more consistently. But no, I like Dante in the starting spot.
You like Dante in the starting spot. I know, Zach, you don't think you thought we should have started Bobby, right, Zach?
Yeah, it's because I think pretty much I think Brook Lopez should be starting 5. I think what he lacks on the defensive end of allowing shooters to get such open shots early in the game, I think is affecting games. I think utilizing Lopez more off the bench, like when there's a bigger body on the court, And instead of just, I think that's what Bud lacks the most is he doesn't like to make those adjustments even when they played the Raptors this year and the Raptors put their small ball lineup up there, Bud didn't want to make a change and just kept Lopez in that starting five.
Yeah.
And then it just allows them to get mismatches all game long. So I think Lopez could be kind of a good piece off the bench too, just so teams aren't able to start out so hot, getting shooters open looks because Lopez can't get out to the 3-point line quick enough. So if they can't trade him and get a good asset in return, I think Lopez could play a good role off the bench.
Yeah. Okay. So Camille, I got a question for you. We answered this already. Is Giannis a true superstar?
Yes. That's I don't have to think about that one. That's a yes.
So why do you think Giannis is a true superstar?
A superstar you have to scheme against, right? Like if you're a superstar, teams are doing what they can do to stop you. They would rather your team beat you than you beat them. And as we've seen with the Bucks, put up a wall and make the rest of the Bucks beat you. Now, Chris has done what he could do, but the teams are scheming against Giannis. And
hey, let me ask you this. A couple years ago, D'Angelo Russell, right, the best player on Brooklyn, they had a scheme against him as well. Is he a superstar?
No, he's not a superstar. I mean, he doesn't have the credentials behind that as well. Like there's multiple layers. Like you got the scheme behind him. Giannis is a 2-time MVP at this point. Okay. 5-time All-Star, 5, however many times he's been there in a row now. But like he's a superstar. He's a superstar.
So he's a superstar.
He's someone who you can say just the one name and you know who you're talking about. It's Giannis.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. Game 7, I think it's going to be against Philly. Eastern Conference Finals. Who do you want taking the last shot for the Bucks? This is to get to the championship.
Whoever is open. Honestly, I like basketball. Like this might sound like a cop-out answer, but
open.
Like you have Giannis, you have Jewell, you have Chris.
Okay.
Situationally, I trust any of those three to make the game-winning shot. It just literally depends on what the look is that they're getting.
So you trust Giannis taking that last shot?
Yep, as we saw against the Clippers, where he had the dunk to put him into the lead. Like there's a game-winning bucket doesn't have to be a jumper. A game-winning bucket can be a dunk. It can be a hook shot. It can be a step. It can be whatever it is, as long as that ball gets into the hoop.
Yeah. And
the Bucks run that said a lot to get Chris open, which everybody knows at this point.
Running that the last 3 years. So.
Yeah, consistently. And seeing how teams are at that point or have been like, okay, go to Chris, and it leaves Giannis. If you leave Giannis in a one-on-one matchup, like generally speaking, he's going to be able to take advantage of that. It's very hard to stop Giannis one-on-one.
So let me ask you this. Against the Suns, Zach, you were there, right?
Yep.
Suns game. Giannis got the ball, at the top of the key. And he shot a mid-range shot.
Mm-hmm.
Are you comfortable with Giannis shooting a mid-range shot Eastern Conference Finals? Game 7. You are comfortable with that?
Yes. I've seen him make. He's not a mid-range specialist, but in that situation against the Suns, it was a good look. Interesting enough, Chris was also open, but Giannis had the shot, and like I've seen him make that game-winning shot in the Garden against the Knicks a few years ago. Like I want him taking those shots, especially in the regular season. Like I was not fazed at all against the Suns that he missed that. But like if it's game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals and that's the shot he takes, but he's open, and no one else is open, like take that shot. If you could have got it out to Chris, who's a better shooter, then I think you need to pass that ball. But I'm not going to be mad at him for trying to get that shot off when he's open.
Okay. So with all that being said, with our team, with our coach, what are we missing to win a championship? Or are we missing anything at all? Zach, I'm going to go with you first. What do you think?
I think a lot of it comes down to the coaching. I think the roster they have around them for when it comes to the playoffs, I think is good enough to win a championship. I mean, we were just talking about they basically have a big three. and if you utilize everyone correctly, and I think that's where it comes down to the coaching. I think they're definitely good enough to do it, and how she was just saying too, for just the game winner. I do like her take on that. When we were talking about it, I don't think Giannis should be taking that shot unless he's able to get all the way to the rim. But I think she makes a great point that it should be who's ever open. And to Bud's point, that then he needs to create a play new from what they ran every single time this situation is in the game that gives you more options, that it's not just like get Giannis the ball in his hands and sprint to the hoop, and then if Chris is open, get it to him. I think there needs to be more creativity, getting like Jrue Holiday involved, Chris Middleton running off something else, and Giannis, and then one person will be open, and then scouting it. You don't know the ball is going to Giannis, you don't know it's going to Chris, you don't know it's going to Jrue. It's going to be different based off how the defenses read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot, and that's going to be huge in the playoffs. Come into close games a lot of how they can handle those situations. And I feel like in playoffs in years past, they've just kind of relied on Giannis to take over games. I think kind of Bud needs to take a bigger role in being able to lead them, changing things up, and not just relying on Giannis to go off for 35 points a game in the playoffs. So I think roster-wise, they're good because rotation is going to be limited. You're only going to be playing 7-8 guys, maybe a 9th guy for very limited minutes. But I think the Bucks have a good enough 8 guys that they can make a run to the finals.
So you're saying the roster is good, but the coaching is bad?
Yep, I think Bud needs to kind of incorporate some more stuff into their offensive plan. We've talked about it for however many weeks now of like the wall. Like there's got to be some other approaches than just having Giannis try and just run through that wall. If you are able to create in different areas, those guys are going to be occupied and they're not going to be able to just stand there and build that wall, and it's going to open up room for Giannis. So I think there's just a lot more. Like we've said, I think Bud's still playing checkers and everyone else is playing chess, and they're just beating them in the playoffs. I think the coaching staff, and it might not just be Bud, it can be assistants or whoever, but I think the coaching needs to get to that point where they're playing chess against their opponent instead of just doing the basic thing of let's just get Giannis the ball and let him go to work.
Yeah, one thing I don't like is that, and I've been saying this on every podcast, how is the wall still a thing? How have we not figured out a way for this not to be? It's been 3 years or 2.5 or whatever. How have we not figured out a way to stop that wall? That's the biggest question. Like, and that goes to Coach Bud. So, Camille, I'm gonna go to you. What are we missing, if anything, to win a championship?
So to Zach's point, you really only need to be about 8 deep. 8 deep, and you're okay. Maybe 9, but about 8 deep. So first 3 off the bench for the Bucks. You got Forbes, you got Portis. Those are 2 guys that I do like what they can give you. And then who do you go with? Like, for me, if the Bucks were to shore up anywhere on their roster, they need some help in that guard position. I'm not a big DJ Augustine fan. I thought that we'd be able to get a little bit more out of him in the regular season. I was very suspect about how he would play in the playoffs when we signed him, and watching what we've got from him so far through the regular season, I'm really not sure what you do there. If there was some way that we could have kept George Hill, I would have felt so much better about this team's final prospects because he was a guard who played defense. The Bucks traded out a lot of their defense on the bench to get buckets. And I get why, because we saw them stall in the playoffs in past years where you couldn't get a guy who you give the ball to, like, get something out of this, please. So I definitely get it. But if we were able to shore up the roster and get another guard that was a little bit more defensive minded, I'd feel a lot better about our chances. But at this point, I think this team is good enough to make it to a finals. Last year when we lost, and I had to process that humiliating loss in the second round, right, I kept saying that the Bucks' best chance of improvement is going to actually be internal. It's going to have to come from Bud. He's going to have to scheme better. He's going to have to just be a better coach overall.
Yep.
And he's taken some steps to show he's willing to try some things this season again. Not necessarily enough yet, but he's also doing enough at the same token where I'm like, I'm intrigued. I'm curious to see how this will play out in the playoffs. You throw that in there, and also part of the effectiveness of the wall is because the limitations of Giannis are easy to exploit.
Yep.
Because you know what he's trying to do. So my other point, So my other point was Giannis has to get better as well, which sounds weird for a back-to-back MVP, but he's also young. There's more things he can add into his game, and I kept saying that Giannis needs to add into his in-between game. Yeah. He does not need to be a three-point specialist. If he could get some post moves and be able to create when he gets stopped and he can't just make his way to the basket, he is going to be so effective. And to your point about scheming better for that wall, stop having Giannis bring the ball up the court all the time. Like, put him in the corner, bring him off the wing, put him in some actions where he can get free, and he's not the focus of the offense.
That's one of his best strengths in the court. You know,
it is. But when you see, it's like, but when you see that's what they're doing consistently, you need to switch it up. Get him the ball in different positions. Like, he can still handle, but just get him the ball in different spots on the court to be able to try to break that down a little bit more. Which is why having Jrue Holiday in there, I think, is such a plus, because I feel like Bucks fans who really watch this team, like, I was an Eric Bledsoe fan. I kept having hope that he would figure it out. But seeing the way that Jrue plays, this is going to sound a little mean, but Jrue just makes good decisions. Yeah. He makes better decisions than Bledsoe did. Like, there was times where Bledsoe would run down the court because he's so fast, and he'd be there, and then he'd be stuck because he was moving faster than he could think.
He goes to the hole and then he goes up and jumps, and then he's stuck.
He's stuck.
And to your point, Jrue makes good decisions. Like, he's under control. Like, he's big enough to bounce off these guys and just still, like, be under control. Like, Jrue is what I call like a forward thinker. Like, like, okay, I'm going to do this, get here, and then do this kind of deal, And then if this doesn't work, he's good at reacting to different things. And I think that's what Bledsoe, besides like decision making, because Bledsoe didn't make a lot of decisions, a lot of good decisions. I think his decision making and like him being able to react, Jrue, I think that's going to take us far in the playoffs.
I do too, and that's a big piece. That's a big piece. We really miss having that, and his ability to create his own shot too. Jrue can, like you mentioned, he can bully a little bit, which I did not expect for him to be as stout as he is. But
I've been watching him play for a long time, and like his defense and just how strong he is. And I don't know, I've never played against Jrue. I mean, I think I can give him a bucket, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, everybody has, like, Kevin Durant say he's the best wing defender. Dame Lillard says he's the best wing defender, and like they just always say how strong he is, So I think Jrue is going to make a big difference. So Camille, let me ask you this. Do you think we can win a championship with Giannis?
Yes. I definitely do. I thought we would win it the last 2 years for sure.
With Giannis and Coach Bud. Let me rephrase it. With Giannis and Coach Bud.
It's possible. It's possible. I don't think that it's like like until we fire Bud, we'll never get a championship. Like, no, it depends. Like, we have to see. And the way that they're playing this regular season out, from everything that I've heard from players after games, from the coaching staff, they finally seem to understand, like, okay, winning in the regular season is cool. It is fun. We enjoyed that, but it does not mean anything if we are not able to win in the playoffs. Right. And their whole mentality you can tell it shifted, like, especially like with Giannis and Chris, the things that they're saying, and they're just like, we're trying to work on this. Like, we lost, but we got better doing X, Y, and Z. Like, they have not switched like that. And you can see, I'm watching, I'm like, oh my God, like, why are you, the switching is late. You're over helping, like, come on. But then I have to remember, no real off season, COVID. We're in a pandemic. You have to keep saying that out. We're in a pandemic.
Then we lost Jrue for what, 10, 12
exactly. So it's like they're figuring things out. Like, I definitely think they can win a championship with Giannis and with Bud. But I also feel like if they crap the bed this season, then you need to start asking the questions of, is Bud the best fit for this team right now?
Yeah. Okay, so I got now. This is the question that this was my favorite question of last week. Is Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton a good enough second option to win a championship? If you look at the past, they got Klay Thompson as the second best player. They got Steph Curry as the second best player. They got Anthony Davis as the second best player. They got Kyrie Irving as the second best player. Zach, you said them together is good enough to win a championship, to be like a second option, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Camille, what do you
think? Yeah, I think
okay.
Kind of how Camille was saying it too before is so I was just saying because I think what Camille was saying too of when coming down to the game-winning shot, you kind of have three options to go to, and I think that's what sets them apart. Like if you look at them individually and put them up against Anthony Davis or Steph Curry or Kyrie Irving, obviously those players are better than Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday. But I think giving that 2-3 combo, I think sets them apart and makes them a good enough option. Obviously, a lot of other teams have had better twos in the past for the championship team, but I think given the fact that they have two possible options as that two option any night, I think kind of sets them apart and makes it a good enough duo to win a finals.
Okay, so Camille, what do you think? Do you think Drew or Chris Middleton is a good enough second option? Now they're going up against Klay Thompson being the Robin, and Steph Curry being the second best player. They got Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. Are they good enough? Either one of those players good enough? Zach thinks both of them is good enough, but what do you think?
I agree with Zach. Honestly, I think the two of them are good enough together to make that up. And there's a lot of different ways to win a championship. Like I know what's been trendy is like the big two, the big three thing, but like look at the Raptors when they won. Like it was really off of the strength of Kawhi Leonard, being MVP, right, and Fred VanVleet getting hot at just randomly. Mix that in with you got a Bulldog and Kyle Lowry playing defense. Like there's a few different ways to win a championship. I don't subscribe to the fact that you have to have, the one and the two, but you have to have a guy who's able to get you some buckets when you need them. Like if everything slows down, you need to be able to get buckets. And I think between Chris and Drew and Giannis, you're able to do that. And we talked earlier about like that last shot. Like I know we mentioned those three, but again, if you're open, shoot it. Like if you got Forbes out there and he's open behind that 3-point, like give him the ball. Like, yes, I trust him to get the last shot. Like just play basketball the right way. Take what the defense is giving you, make the right reads, play the right way. I think this team can do that. Like I think Drew and Chris and Giannis is enough for sure. For sure.
Okay. So that kind of like ends like the Bucks segment. So now I'm gonna open it up to Camille. I'm gonna start with you on this one. I know you said there's something to be said about this. Are nerds ruining sports with all their analytics? What do you think?
That Bleacher Report post had the internet in a tizzy when that came out.
Yep.
I think there's a misunderstanding of analytics to a certain degree. I think that most people who don't take a deeper look into it just believe that analytics says that every mid-range shot is bad and you should only shoot threes or by the hoop. And that's not necessarily the case. It's just every player is not elite in mid-range area where them taking that shot makes the most sense. Yep. Like certain players taking mid-range shots is actually a plus shot over some other players. Like for me, I think there's space for analytics and for the eye test. I actually think they work together because normally stats alone do not tell the story. And normally your eye alone won't tell the story. Like you kind of need to marry the two a little bit together in order to get that complete picture.
Yeah.
But I think if you're only in one of those two camps, like you're missing the boat.
Okay. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think she pretty much just nailed it right there. Is it has to be the two of them together. Because if it went just full analytics, 100%, that's all you're looking at, not really watching games, just looking at box scores and all that, you're going to be missing a lot of
Mhm.
different things. You look at Carmelo Anthony. He's your typical before analytics were involved. He's taken every mid-range jumper he wants. He's obviously extended a little bit where he's shooting more threes, but Carmelo Anthony's still in the league and he's still taking his jumpers. It's not fully, if you're just looking at analytics, Carmelo Anthony's not in the NBA anymore. I
So are
think
we talking
there's a lot that goes into it that you don't see.
So are we
Go
talking
ahead.
50-50, like 50% analytics, 50% the eye test? Is that how we merge it, or are we favoring one side to the other? What do you think, Zach?
I don't think it's even 50% analytics. I think it could even be a little bit less because analytics don't really, you're not seeing the true heart of an athlete, what they're given on the floor. I mean, if you look at, let's just say Draymond Green, if you're just looking at analytics, you're not going to want Draymond Green on your team, but
Mhm.
he was a major factor for the Warriors in winning their finals.
Right.
So I think what players can give you on the floor, being able to see what they have in their heart, what they're able to offer. Like you look at the drive of Patrick Beverley in the playoffs, like a Kyle Lowry, the impact he makes on like the defensive end. Like those guys aren't like even near the top of like players you're looking at if you're looking at analytics. But those are huge aspects and key players for their teams. But again, what Camille was saying too with like 3-pointers, I think that's where like kind of analytics can play a factor that if you look at if you shoot 30% from three or you shoot 40% from just 2-point range, you're getting more points on the scoreboard from shooting 30% from three than you are for shooting 40% from the field. So I think you kind of have to put them together. But I think looking at just players and building a team, it's not so much analytics.
Okay, so Camille, what do you think? Do you think it's more, it should be more analytics or more eye test? Or are you 50-50 with, like, when you say you married the two?
For me, it's a feel thing. So, for example, Russell Westbrook is a player that's really fascinating to me because if you only looked at the box scores, you'd be like, man, he's like the greatest player to ever, like, look at what he's doing. And then when you dig into it a little bit deeper, you're like, wow, he is very inefficient. He's not a great shooter.
Right.
A lot of the rebounds and then when you watch the game, like when he was on the Thunder and you saw a lot of how he was getting those boards, like you're like, oh, okay, like they're boxing out for Russ to get the board and go. Again, not discrediting Russ. We saw him have a game saving rebound the other night. Like he is good, but watching him alone doesn't tell the full story until you look at the analytics along with it. And then you're like, wow, okay, like if Russ was like when he was with the Rockets last season and they kind of unleashed him in the sense of spreading everything out and letting him keep driving, like he is a slasher through and through. Like that is the most pristine way to use Russ offensively, and they were nailing it. But when you have Russ out there jacking up 10 3-pointers a game, like that's not going to be a way to win. Like for me, it's marriage. Like sometimes I'm watching a game and I'm like, I wonder, okay, this guy's taking this shot a lot. I wonder if this is really in his wheelhouse. And now I'll go look up the stats and be like, oh, he's just having an off night, or no, he's generally pretty consistent here. So this makes some sense. So for me, it's like a feel. Like it just depends for me, like how interested I am in that player, how much I look into it.
So you think, depending on the player, you have to, it's a percentage, like maybe the eye test or maybe analytics is a little bit more, or maybe the eye test is a little bit more, depending on the.
And depending on what they're doing, because when you see Steph Curry, like you know Steph Curry is like ungodly. Like you can see that and the numbers back that up. But there are certain times, like Zach mentioned Draymond, where you're like, well, he's not doing anything. But when you watch him, you're like, oh, he's doing everything. He is like the quarterback of their defense. He is facilitating their offense. Like he is vital to what the Warriors do. So it depends. I don't think it's one of those things where it's a set percentage. It just depends. You gotta kind of like basketball. Like you can't, you know what I mean? Like you gotta like the game and watch the game to understand how the numbers work behind it.
Yeah, here's what I feel about it. I don't like analytics. I don't like the fact that they call them nerds, but I'm not gonna call them nerds. they call it these analytical guys get to come in and say, I think they have a space in sports, but I think it's a very small space. Only because analytics doesn't measure the amount of confidence that a player has. It doesn't matter. It doesn't man it like you were saying, like both of you were saying about Draymond. It doesn't take into consideration the amount of heart somebody has, like all the intangible stuff to win a game. Like this is a perfect scenario. Camille, let's say clutch jumpers. Go ahead, clutch jumpers. You make 35% of them, right?
Mhm.
Now Zach makes 40% of those clutch jumpers, right? So the analytical guy is in my ear saying, hey, Zach needs to take this shot because he has a higher percentage. But the analytical guy isn't saying that Zach went 1 for 12 the whole game. Now, Zach, I know you're not going to go 1 for 12. I know you're not going to go 1 for 12. But for argument's sake. So the analytics is saying Zach needs to take this shot. But he went 1 for 12. And Camille, you just hit 4 straight shots. So should I really go with Zach on this one? Like you're riding high, your confidence is high. Like, how much? Like how good is that 35% that you're telling me right now?
See, that's the thing where I mentioned, like, I think analytics are a little bit misunderstood because you have to calculate everything else in there with that. So basketball is such a rhythm sport, unlike football, where it's like, okay, the percentages say that, 10% of the chances we shouldn't do this, but we should in this situation. But in basketball, there's so much more rhythm involved in that. Like you scheme it up the way you scheme it up, but analytics work in concert. So let's say I am a 35% clutch shooter while Zach is 40%. Generally speaking, if you're going back, is it who's taking more shots in those situations? Am I shooting 35% because I've been in that situation more often? I've had more attempts. Or is Zach, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different things that go into it. And I just think it's a piece of it. Like it has a place. It for sure has a place. I actually love looking at the numbers. I've been meaning to like take some more time and like really learn how some of those other stats work, but there's a place for it. But basketball at its heart is always going to be about rhythm. I always say, like, this isn't 2K. Like you can't trade a player over here and expect it to work immediately. Like you got to have chemistry, as you mentioned, the heart, just how they are in the locker room. Like there's so much that goes into it.
Can analytics measure rhythm?
Analytics measures results.
Exactly. It doesn't.
Results aren't rhythm. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't measure the intangibles, and like I agree with both of you. I think it has a place, but I don't think it should be a lot. I'm more like maybe 30%, 40% maybe, because I don't know. It just doesn't measure like when you're in the zone right now. Let's say Camille, you're in the zone, right? You're hitting all these shots. Now, do I want you to take the last shot, or do I go with Zach that's been shooting 40%? It's like, for me, I'm not going to listen to this analytical guy. I'm going with the hot hand. You heard, like, that's what they say. Go with the hot hand, I think analytics should be in sports, but I think it should be a small, not like a small percentage, but it should be somewhere around 30% max for me.
And I think it is like that's on the coach. Like at that point, if you're in the game and you know where your players, like who's hot, percentages and whatnot. So you scheme the best play that you can for whoever you think can hit that shot at that moment, and then you have options out of it in case they get jammed up and can't get a shot off.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So, last question here. This is the question that sent Twitter on the frenzy, and my phone didn't stop ringing after this. Zach, who you got, Hardin or Kobe? I'm going to start with you, Zach.
Wait, what? That's a real question?
That's a real question, yes. And, what I'm going to tell you the results, what I got, too. Because most people, what they hear is like, oh, my God, Kobe. Like, of course, Kobe. But, Zach, who do you got?
I mean, I got Kobe any day of the week. You ask this question, I got Kobe all day. I mean, I was reading all the comments you had on Twitter too, and most people did have Kobe. But the people at every single person that was arguing Hardin, it's all just because of his offensive game. He's nearly unstoppable on the offensive end. He's slightly better facilitator, averaging more assists a game. But
I don't think
they're trying to compare like.
I don't think he's slightly better facilitator. He was a better rebounder, and he averaged double-digit assists. And he's leading the league in assists right now. But yeah, go ahead. You said Kobe.
Yeah. So, and I think what a lot of people are trying to do is comparing. You can't always just compare stats when you're looking at players from different eras because the style of play is so much different. So how I'm looking at it is what Kobe did and what he did in his era compared to what Hardin is doing and what like in his era. Because if you're looking at it by how they argued it, is Bradley Beal a better player than Kobe then? Because Bradley Beal's averaging 35 points a game right now. And James Harden hasn't got to that point yet where he is a dominant force in the NBA. He hasn't gone on streaks of winning NBA championships. Like, teams know how to beat him.
Okay.
Well, per se, I mean, I can't say he's had like a Shaq and like had that Shaq Kobe duo. But I mean, he's had Russell Westbrook. He's had Chris Paul for a couple of years. He's had guys, so it's not always just him. But I think Kobe has that factor where he's dominated his era. He's up there in top players of all time. And I think he's just a far superior player in his era than where Hardin is in the conversation of where he is today.
Okay. So you rolling with Kobe. Camille, who you rolling
with? The question itself has shocked me. I didn't expect that to be a comparison, but I'm going Kobe, and that is because unlike football, you need to play both sides in basketball. James Harden is an offensive, like he is a wizard. I'm not discrediting it. To say that Kobe Bryant's better than you is not a diss. Like James Harden is great offensively, but I'm not going to say that he's a better player than somebody who has been on like 10 plus all defensive teams.
So
like,
let me ask both of you this. Who's better offensively? Now, Zach, who do you have better offensively? Camille, I'm going to let you finish, but I need to know. Zach, who do you think is better offensively, Kobe or Hardin?
See, this is kind of why I approached it. It's hard to compare that from the different eras because people say it's probably past Kobe, but still in Kobe's era, like defense was so much more respected and they tried so much harder on defense, a lot more aggressive, could hand touch, all of that stuff. Whereas Hardin now, he has a lot more space.
That's not Harden's fault, like Hardin.
No, yeah.
He can only eat what you put in front of him,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So,
and with that being the case, season was 36 points a game throughout the season. Whereas Kobe, he had a season where he averaged 35 points a game. So even and it's hard to compare the two because it's not Harden's fault that it's a more free flowing game. He has they can't contact him as much, and you can't blame Kobe that he doesn't have as much space. It's hard to compare the two because it's such a different style game. Kobe was unstoppable from mid range, whereas Hardin is unstoppable from his step back, or get him to bite on the step back, so then you get a floater. So it's two completely different games, and it's just hard to compare the two. I think Hardin has him beat with the ball handling and the facilitating, but just scoring wise, I mean, Kobe could get a bucket whenever he wanted to too.
Okay, yeah. So you're going Kobe. Camille, who do you have?
I agree with Zach. It's hard to compare different eras, although there was some overlap between Kobe and Harden's time. Like the hand check rule went out in the early 2000s, I want to say 02, 03, somewhere in there. Somewhere in there. So Kobe got to play a few years, with hand checking, and then he got to play without it. Even without the hand check rule, Kobe was all defense. You know what I mean? Like, I know we're not talking about that, but I just need to throw that out there.
No
when it comes to the offensive game, Steph Curry kind of single-handedly changed how a lot of teams viewed the three-pointer. Like it was becoming more popular for sure, but Steph made it a thing like we are shooting a whole bunch of these things. And then the Rockets took it to a whole different level when they said analytics says this is the most efficient shot next to getting a layup. Like you just get so many more points out of it. And it changed the way that the league played. Like it's the eras are different. And the way I've always felt is that if you were a legend in your era, you can probably translate your game to play in whatever other era there is. And so with that being said, like I'm going to still give that edge to Kobe because as Zach pointed out, he also averaged 35 in the season before. Harden's averaged 36. If Kobe would have came into the league when Hardin came into the league, I think that Kobe's game would have changed a bit. He probably still would have taken those mid-range jumpers, especially as he aged, because the older Kobe got, the more he leaned into that Jordan type of role of let me create out the mid-range. Yeah. And
so
you couldn't stop him.
You said defensively.
It's not a question. Like defensively, it's not even it's not close. But offensively, there's an argument for Hardin. I just would argue for Kobe.
Yeah. So both of y'all saying Kobe is better offensively, even though Hardin averaged more rebounds in the season than Kobe. He averaged more assists than Kobe. So like this is all offense right here. Not just, like the 35 that you said and the 36. Like offense is offense. Like this is assists. This is, rebounds, Has Kobe had a 35, 11, and 7 season? He hasn't had that, and we're talking about offense. Now, offense is the whole thing. When you hear Kobe, you don't hear passing. That's not, He
was a gifted passer. It's just that his role in that team was not to facilitate. He never played point. James Harden actually played point guard for the Rockets. Like his job was different.
But that's what sets him apart from a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's not a
score. He can score 40 and get 11 assists.
But Kobe could get 11 assists if he wanted to. It's just that the roles were different. Like Kobe was never tasked with facilitating their team's offense. Kobe was tasked with getting a bucket. You know what I mean? Like if you were to say Kobe go facilitate the offense, then I'm sure his numbers would have been different. But
sure,
that's never a role that Kobe was asked to play. Meanwhile, James Harden did have to play point guard and is currently playing point guard for the Nets, and he's good at it.
Yeah,
he's good at it. He's very good at it.
Scores too. Like he's asked to score as well. Now,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm still rolling with Kobe. I would still pick Kobe over Hardin, but I think it's not as wide gap as everybody say it is. Defensively, absolutely. Hardin, okay, come on. We know he doesn't play defense. But offensively, if you look at the whole picture, I think Hardin is close to Kobe. And
no, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
He's close to Kobe. Even if he plays the game now where it's high, pace, fast pace, and they shoot up more, they're scoring more. Yeah, but that's not. I can't blame Hardin for that. But yeah, I'm still rolling with Kobe. But I think most people, what they do is they hear the name like one of these legends.
That's fair.
It's like, oh, I got to pick him because
that's fair.
But Hardin is not that far behind Kobe. If you look at the big picture, this guy averages almost averages a triple double. Like like he's asked to do more. Like he's asked to score and facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe was only supposed to focus on one thing, and that's scoring. I think Kobe's mentality was better. Again, I'm rolling with Kobe over this, but I can see why somebody would say Hardin though. So
I think your point of it's closer than that first initial reaction would give you is true when you're looking just at offense.
Yep.
But if the question that was asked is who's the better player, then that answer is quickly Kobe. But if you're like looking just at offense, then it's more of a discussion. But we all came to the same conclusion. But
how do you say he's a better player? Like, how is Kobe a better player? What does Kobe do better than James Harden? Besides
play defense.
Well, okay.
Because it's basketball. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, defense. If you take out the defense part, then we have a conversation. But if you're including the whole game, there's no more conversation.
Okay. So the thing that puts him above Harden is defense.
He's a two-way player, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because to your point there too, for if you're looking at just swap the two, and if we're saying Kobe Bryant in his prime is on the Brooklyn Nets right now with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and to your point, of that the Bucks aren't going to have a problem with them because they're not going to be able to have enough stops. Like, obviously, I know that if defense is a factor, Kobe's obviously the better player, but that comparison right there, that score a few less, but he's going to stop twice as many. That is just going to the scoreboard, just going to result in such a larger deficit. Yeah. So, and I think that's what sets him apart.
Yeah,
I agree.
Basically, makes it not even a conversation.
It's one thing that I like that you two did not bring up for Kobe, and well, I think Zach, you brought it up, but it's his rings. Like, yeah, we can talk about rings.
Yeah.
Again, rings don't tell the whole story, because if we're saying who's the greatest of all time and you're only talking about rings, Bill Russell better be mentioned. I don't see anybody saying Bill Russell is the best player to have. What he got? He got 11 rings. And I'm glad that we didn't say that's like the sole reason. Like, hey, he's, that's why he's better, And Kobe shows up in the playoffs too. But yeah, that's all I have. Camille, did you have any questions for us at all?
Just what made you guys start this podcast? And then I don't know if I've followed you guys on Twitter and everything, but I don't see your personal handles listed anywhere. So if people want to follow you, where do we go? We want more of these. I want more of these takes.
Right. So we were just looking at, I was just looking at doing a Bucks podcast, because I'm looking at all these other podcasts and I'm just I want to do that. I want to talk basketball. And then there was one time we was on Instagram, Zach, I'm not sure if you remember, but me and Zach were just talking, basketball. And we both were man, we should just start a podcast, we love talking about it. So why not put it out to the world, And I think there's a lot of people that love to talk sports. So I'm okay, let's just do it. We do it anyway. We do it almost every day. Why not put it in audio? Why not record it? Why not put it out to the world and see what everybody else says, As far as the handles, I don't I don't really tweet that much as far as my account, Jewell's account. So I don't know. Some people, they don't want to follow people unless they tweet. And I'm not a huge tweeter on that account. I mean, I guess I could put it up there. Zach, what's your reason? Should I put you up there, Zach?
I mean, if you want to. I don't know if I'm not going to be on there promoting the Bucks all the time, though. I grew up in Wisconsin, but I've been out here in Arizona for a few years now. So I just love basketball in general. I watch all the Bucks games, so I analyze it. I look at it as more than just a fan. But I'm actually a Suns fan now, so I'm out here at all the Suns games.
Yeah.
I love that. Me personally, I won't speak for all of your listeners, but when I tend to follow somebody on Twitter, especially from a podcast, it's not to hear all of what I hear you talking about. I want to what are you about? What do you like?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So for sure, I'm definitely glad you guys have this podcast. Once I got the message from you guys, I followed, I subscribed, I liked. I need to give you guys a review on iTunes ASAP, but
thank you.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
I love it. I love sports. I love the way you guys have the conversations. It's it's refreshing. So like I thank you guys for having me on, and I'm really enjoying what you guys are building over here for sure. And I love podcasting. The reason that you guys started your pod is similar to why I started mine. Like I love sports. I would love a different way to kind of get my voice out there, maybe be able to turn this into some kind of career down the line. So I wanted to do that. And
sports, like that's good, you know.
That, and on top of that, to be honest with you too, there aren't many women in this space, and there aren't as many like Black people in this space. Like I was like, let's get something a little bit different. So when we made Tech File, it was like we wanted to be conversational. We wanted to be like you're at the bar with your friends and you're getting a drink and you're catching up on life from the last week and whatever just happened in the news from the sports side. So I feel that same energy from you guys, just conversational, no gimmicks, just real, and I love that.
I mean, what we like to do though is like we're kind of like we want to give Buck's Twitter a voice, you know? Like if you go through the games and then you look at who's tweeting about the Bucks, there's a million people, different takes. But yeah, I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on here. We do greatly appreciate it.